You know that feeling of being planted firmly on the ground? We never really think about it, do we? It's just there. It's a constant. But what if it wasn't? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty wild thought experiment.
So here it is. What if, for just 1 hour, 60 short minutes, gravity on Earth just switched off? I mean, really think about that. What's the first thing that pops in your head? Probably floating around, right? Kind of like an astronaut, just drifting peacefully. Sounds kind of cool, maybe.
Yeah, that's the fantasy, this amazing, weightless adventure. But the reality? Oh, the reality is something else entirely. It's the difference between a fun dream and an absolute nightmare. We're talking about what would probably be the most terrifying 60 minutes in all of human history. So let's get into it. Let's break down exactly why.
And look, this chaos, it wouldn't be a slow burn. It would be instant. We're talking about the very second the world literally starts to lift off.
So the first thing you would feel is this sudden weird lightness, because everything that isn't bolted, welded, or cemented to the ground would just become untethered. Your chair, your car, your dog, you, everything. And in just a few moments, you're not just light, you're helplessly drifting upward. And this whole thing would unfold terrifyingly fast. Okay, so at second 1, it's just a strange feeling, weightlessness. Cool, but by second 10, people and cars are already lifting off the pavement. Fast forward to the 30-second mark, and they're not just floating anymore. They're deadly projectiles in this bizarre slow-motion storm. And before you even hit the 1-minute mark, the buildings, the very structures we think of as permanent, they'd start to groan and buckle.
Just try to picture this in a big city. Planes just fall out of the sky. Their wings don't work without air pressure held down by gravity. Buildings, which are designed to handle massive downward force, are suddenly free of it. They'd basically start to tear themselves apart from the upward pressure. And down on the streets, every car, every bus, every park bench becomes a lethal weapon in this surreal, silent ballet of pure destruction.
Okay, so the cities are in total chaos. But honestly, that's just the start. The problem gets way, way bigger. We're talking planetary scale now. We have to look at the very things that make Earth, well, Earth, our oceans and our air.
Billions of tons. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how much water gravity is holding down in our oceans right now. It's like a cosmic leash. So what do you think happens when you suddenly cut that leash?
Well, it's not a tsunami. It's something much, much weirder. The oceans themselves would start to lift off the planet, not in waves, but in these gigantic, cohesive blobs of water. We're talking about literal mountains of water just rising into the sky.
And while these giant water blobs are floating up, an even more urgent problem is happening. Because it's not just the water that gravity keeps pinned to the Earth. It's our atmosphere, our air. And without that gravitational anchor, the air we breathe just starts drifting away, escaping into the freezing cold of space.
And that leads to one pretty horrifying conclusion: asphyxiation. The atmosphere thins out, oxygen levels plummet, and every single breath you try to take becomes harder than the one before. For every living thing that needs oxygen, the clock is ticking, and it's ticking fast.
This is the real human cost here. Anyone who couldn't grab onto something solid would just float away, helplessly. The source material paints this absolutely chilling picture of people screaming as they just vanish up into the cold, thinning atmosphere.
So, could you survive this? Is there any chance? Well, maybe. A slim one. A very slim one. Your only shot would be to be locked deep inside a super strong, sealed structure. Or maybe if you could tie yourself to something so massive, so anchored that it couldn't lift off. But let's be real, the odds are not in your favor.
But here's the kicker. Remember, this only lasts for an hour. And that brings us to the grand finale, the moment the gravity switch gets flipped back on. Because, as the saying goes, what goes up must eventually come down. So just picture it. For a moment, the Earth is surrounded by this massive cloud of chaos. Floating oceans, chunks of buildings, cars, people. Everything is just suspended up there. And then, right at the 60-minute mark, bam! Gravity is back. And everything falls. All at once. The impact, the sheer devastation, it's almost impossible to even imagine.
And if you, by some absolute miracle, survive the first hour, you dodged the flying cars, you found a pocket of air, it wouldn't matter. You'd now be facing the final, crushing end. Survival at this point isn't a long shot. It's just impossible.
So, back to our question. What if gravity disappeared for an hour?
It's not an adventure. It's definitely not a fun fantasy. It would be, in the most simple and terrifying way to put it, the apocalypse. Kind of makes you appreciate that invisible force holding you in your chair right now, doesn't it?